Hello, Rabbi.
Okay.
Let's see. Wait 1 more minute.
Thank you for the time accommodation.
Sure. Okay, I think we can start. So we're going to spend the more or less at Avner's behest. We're going to spend the next few sessions on the laws and philosophy of lying. Now, I am using for the purpose of this set of shiurim a sefer called Emes Knei. Because Emes Sheker, I can't really see it even open light, but it was Emes Sheker by a Rabbi Yitzchok Isaac Silver, which is a contemporary in person today in Yerushalayim. It's at the end of a sefer called Mishpatei HaShalom, Halachos ben Adam L'Chaveiro. The second part of the sefer is called Emes Knei. Okay, so the unless I say otherwise, let us assume that I'm quoting from him or paraphrasing him. And he says, he has very interesting Hakdama, which is more about introduction, which is more about the Hashkofos, the perspective which we have online. And there's a Gemara in Yuma which says that the seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is truth, right? Ohr Somayach shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Emes. The seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is truth. And there are many things which we describe as being Emes. And we say, Sukkah de Zimmer, Hashomer Emes Yolam, he who preserves truth forever. And the Shabbat of Nasal Toras Emes. We say in Birchos HaShachar and Birchos HaTorah, Hashem put within us a Torah of truth. And now, but what happens when a kid comes to school? In other words, he enters elementary school, it starts with a chumash. But we certainly teach a kid not to lie, right? By the way, I don't think I was ever taught in school not to lie. Were you taught in school not to lie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were?
No, I was taught how to lie better in school.
I don't remember any taught how to not to lie. But he says, yet at the same time, we teach them, this is a very nice paragraph, I like it. So we teach them that Avraham Avinu told, Yisora Imenu, Imina Chosiat, Lamai Tavli Bavarecha, Sonav Shibi Golech. Tell Paro tell people you're my sister, in order that we should be able to survive and thrive. So we see very early on in Chumash, a very, very explicit lie, right? I never thought of it in those terms before. So it should be confusing. Is it confusing? I don't know. What? I didn't hear that. I have brown headphones. So that should be confused. And then it says, of course, the story with Yaakov and Esav, with Yaakov stealing the brachos of Yitzchok, right? And then it has the brothers say that Yosef died, V'achiv Meis. So he says, we never heard that children have asked how our forefathers lie because of the purity of their hearts and the propriety of their spirit. They understand that you can change things if you don't want to cause a person anguish or to take that which is you feel is yours according to the law. That's not sheker. But on the flip side, that when these kids grow older and they become unfortunately wiser, then they start making comparisons and parallels, and sometimes they say, well, if the Avos lied, we certainly can lie, right? And this causes them to be under peer pressure, under social pressure, to become gradually bigger and bigger liars. What's the word? Not perennial, but pathological liars, and they start lying about what's okay, what's not okay, whichever way is convenient, or whichever way pressure is going in that time. So therefore, the question is, how do we correctly understand what the limits of lying are? Now, of course, if we want to look at the Avos and Gracious and just learn from them, we could learn the parameters, but it's easier to actually pursue the parameters as how logic work. But I want to stress this again. Were we to see the three cases gracious as paradigms of when to lie, we would know you're allowed to lie in a situation of danger. Sakonas Nefashos. That's the case of Avraham Avinu. We would know you're allowed to lie in the case of it's called vigilante justice. It's not the right term because vigilante usually has to do with violence in terms of some sort of bodily harm. But in other words, taking that which is mine. If I justifiably mine, because if I go into somebody's house, he stole something from me. I go to somebody's house and take that thing back which he stole from me. That's not theft, right? So too, if I have to lie in order to get something back which is mine, I can lie. That's the case of Yaakov. And the case of Yosef, Chazal already say that we learned from, not from this case actually, from the last case in Bereshit. So I'll come back to that. We learned from the last case, we learned from, I guess, Achiv Mace. Actually, there's the four cases in which go on. That his brother died. From this, we can learn that where it's going to cause impossible hardships to occur or terrible difficulties, one is allowed to lie. And the fourth case, which he doesn't bring down, is where at the end of Bereshit, the brothers say, our father said before he died that we should all remain in harmony. And there Chazal say explicitly that from this we learn that Gadol HaShalom, you're allowed to lie in order to save the peace. So basically there are four reasons one is allowed to lie. I said three before, the four, which is one is because of Pikuach Nefesh. The other is to get back that which is justifiably mine. The other is it's going to cause great difficulty, or in Yaakov Avinu's case, it might cause even greater anguish, okay? Because if he knew Yosef was alive, his brother sold him, he might have even greater anguish to think he was dead. And in the case, it's going to maintain the peace. Okay, so far so good? Okay, so Chazal say that an interesting, guys, if you ain't gonna make a lot of noise, you should mute yourself. Okay, the Chazal say that we are in a world of Sheker. And Chazal say in a couple places and in Saita that one of the klolos, one of the curses of Ikvus of the Mashiach of the time before Mashiach comes is Emes Knei. Truth will be lacking. There's going to be a shortness of a shortfall of truth in the world. And there's an interesting Gemara Sanhedrin, which says that there were four Dayanim in stone, whose names were Shkaroi, Shakuroi, Zaifoi, Umatzle Dino. The first two words are synonym for lying. Zaife means to forge, and Umatzle Dino means to distort justice. And says the author of this book, who says we have not adopted that type of distortion ourselves in the lengthy golus with which we have during which we have absorbed many traits from the nations of the world. There's a famous Chavas Yoyer. It's not here. I'm sure it's down somewhere else. There's another Chavas Yoyer. Famous Chavas Yoyer. The Chavas Yoyer was from 17th century Ashkenazic Achor in Germany. Maybe it was 18th century. But in any event, 16 or 1700s. And he was once, what his brother-in-law said, I think it was his brother-in-law, said to him that he'd been asked a question by the local duke, and the duke is named in the book. And the question the duke asked is, you Jews, you're always bribing the judges. Doesn't it say in your Torah not to bribe? Right, so why are you always bribing the judges? So his answer was a very interesting answer. He said, it says in the Torah they are not allowed to give bribes because the bribe is going to distort the thinking of the person who receives it. So so he says, imagine that a balance, an even keel is like this, right? And you give the judge the bribe, so it becomes distorted like that, right? Goes down. So now let's imagine you're in Germany in the 17th century or 18th century, and you're coming before a non-Jewish judge. So you don't come before a judge this way. You come to a judge this way because he's biased against you to begin with. So therefore, the Jews are justified in giving bribes just to get back to the baseline. Okay, that's in the sefer. So that is how. Now the problem is that if that is the way you are going to conduct yourself, it spills over from 17th or 18th century Germany to 20th century, 21st century America. So that's something where, like you say, our history has sometimes caused distortion to become part and parcel of how we act, right? He goes on to say that the Psikta Rabbasi says that Hashem created every Kol Baruch Baruch Olamo. It's an amazing statement. It's like Apikorsus. Kosh Baruch created everything in this world except for the attribute of Sheker. He didn't create it, and the attribute of Shav, which is also kind of the distortion. He didn't activate that.
Shav?
Shav, Shin Vav Aleph. Okay? He didn't activate it. We did it on our own. That's an amazing concept. I never saw it before, right? Usually we say everything is in the creation, comes from Kodesh Baruch Hu and has a purpose. And of course, Sheker also has a purpose. But the way the Psikta Rabbasi learns it, no, Sheker is the direct result of man's free will and his distortion of truth. Okay, and so he goes on to say, the author Rabbi Silver, it's astonishing. How can you say there's something was created that Hashem didn't create? So he says, no. He says that it's clear that Sheker and Shav are not a presence. They're not something which are created, but they're a lack. They are a lack of truth, right? So therefore, it's not Hashem that created because it's not a thing to create. It's the absence of a thing, the absence of truth. Okay, I'm not so sure I buy that answer, but it's not bad. Okay, so therefore, he says we have a chazal which says that any dayan who judges truthfully, so at that point he's like a partner with Hashem in creating the world. More in Shabbos Taf Yud. Why is that? Because he, just like Hashem brought this midah of Emes into the world, so he's bringing the midah of Emes into the world. Okay, so we find on the other hand that in Sanhedrin Daf Beis, Rabbi Elazar, anybody who switches their words around, meaning they lie, it's as if they're serving Avodah Zarah. And we find that part of interesting thing he says it's connected to Avodah Zarah because Avodah Zarah, idolatry is attributing power to something which doesn't have power. So idolatry is based on a lie. So anybody who lies is as if they're only Avodah Zarah because they are participating in the same process, which allows people to present themselves as being to present false idols as having actually power. The Gemara, there's a famous Gemara which says that Yerushalmi, which says that at the time of Chazal, they were very meticulous, they're very meticulous not to, the Amei Haaretz, even the simple people, who the rest of the week might lie, on Shabbos they wouldn't lie. And that's why if you ask them the rest of the week, whether they're trumas and they are taking trumas and maasros off their stuff, wouldn't believe them if I wouldn't believe their answer. But on Shabbos, whatever they answered, they would believe in that answer. So therefore, we see that Gemara says, Emes Shabbos al Amoretz. The awe of Shabbos or the fear of Shabbos is even on an Amoretz. The Gemara there is stressing the power of Shabbos. But what he's stressing here is once was a concept that I don't lie if I have to do with something holy. That's the vestige of that, of course, is that when people swear oaths, they swear on the Bible. Now, it really makes no sense. What difference does it make you swear on the Bible or not? But the assumption is that if a person swears on the Bible, and this is taken from us, because our shvut daraisa has to be binikitas chayf, it's holding on to an object of a mitzvah. The assumption is that a person is in the presence of a mitzvah, a person is less likely to lie. There's a famous Gemara in Sanhedrin. Any Gemara is famous, but the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, there was a person named Rav Tavyumi who came to a place called Kushta. Kushta means in Aramaic truth, where people would never lie and nobody would die prematurely. He married a woman there and he had 2 children. One time somebody came to the door and knocked and wanted to speak to his wife. And she was in the shower. And he lied out of kind of sneers. And he said she's not home. Okay, which we find is mutter. And his 2 children died. And when it came out, when it came known the reason why his children died, the people asked Rav Tavyumi to leave that place and not to cause him further death. Right? So here we see another aspect, which is this halacha. Let me clarify. I don't know if the story actually took place, but the story is coming to prove a point that even if al pi halacha you can lie, there's some chisaron, there's some shortcoming in lying nevertheless. And this would bring us to the topic which he doesn't discuss here of avera lishma. There's sometimes some things which a person has to do wrong, but it's the right time and the right place to do something wrong. Now, it's very dangerous to use the heter of avera lishma, because then you can say to yourself, well, the avera I'm about to do, the sin I'm about to commit is for the sake of heaven and only for the sake of heaven. And not too many people are going to be honest with themselves under those circumstances. But in theory, there is this concept where Chazal tell us that you're allowed to lie. The way we have to perceive that is an avera lishma. So it's bad to lie. It's always bad to lie. The best thing to do is not to lie, but in our world of Sheker, we can't function that way. So therefore, occasionally, we're allowed to lie. That's the way to see it. Okay, and that's I think that Gemara is coming to tell us.
So the ability to lie, it's not something the Torah wants you to do, but if you have a heter, you can do it?
Yes. Is that astonishing to you?
No, just in those circumstances, the Torah doesn't want you to lie, even if that's the best option.
The Torah doesn't want you to lie, even if it's the best. What? Can I come again?
No, I mean, in these circumstances, pikuach nefesh and whatnot.
No, of course the Torah wants you to lie. But the point is that it's b'di'evet. It's not l'chadchila. It's an avera lishma. Just like Esther had to go into Hashkofos in order to save Am Yisrael. That's an avera lishma. But we don't. When there's no choice and you're back against the wall, you have to do it.
So is that doing a mitzvah or use of a heter?
It's doing an avera, but for the sake of heaven.
Okay.
So, you've heard of this concept of avera lishma before?
Yep.
Okay. So that's what that is. Okay.
I think in like 4th parak of brachas, there's I'm trying to remember. There's like 3 things that it mentions that you should lie about if asked.
Is that referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about it?
So that sounds like it's not like a b'di'evet. It's like it's a thing that you should do. Like lechatchila.
I think the lechatchila is not to answer the question. But the b'di'evet is if you're forced into a corner. then you're allowed to do it. And it's interesting because there the reason is clearly because of well, the different reasons for each thing, but the overarching reason is another humility, which is perhaps another reason we'll find that you're allowed to lie. Yeah, I didn't think of that one before. Could be. Okay, so the class case which indicates to us that lying is an avera, even if one must do it, is the Gemara Sanhedrin, where it says that Hashem said in Shamayim that somebody has to go out and be a spirit in the mouths of the prophets of Baal to go lure Achav to the war in which he would fall in battle. And the spirit of Novos, which was before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, standing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was that holy, volunteering to go, and it went and it seduced Achav to go to war, and it went to war with Hashem. It went out with Hashem's sanction. But when it came back, it says that they didn't allow it back into the Shama back into the same place where it was before, because there are 4 kitos, 4 groups which cannot be in the presence of the Shekhinah, which are Chanfonim. They are Chanfonim, Shakranim, Saf. What? Chanfonim, Shakranim, Saf Elosh Hara. What is the? I forget what the 4th one is. All right, but anyway, one of them is the group of Shakranim. So a person, in this case, the Hashem agreed that the Sheker should be told. It was the imperative to do at that time in order to get Achav out into the field of battle. And yet, the circumstances, the consequences were the consequences. That, again, adds to credence to that idea that lying is an Avera Lishma. You must, even if you do it, it has negative consequences. There's a very big aside of Reb Tzadok, which is that anything which you do, even if it's positive, 99%, for the 1% which is negative, you need a kapara. Because they had 1% of negative ramification. So therefore here too, even though what Nova, the Ruach, the spirit of Nova said was 99% positive, nevertheless it's a one shortcoming, that was it. That had to leave that high exalted position which they had before. Now, certainly this is true if a person is constantly and consistently lying, that he will not, and become Solom Haba, he's going to be in big trouble. And then the author gets into several aspects of the of Emes, and Tamei Chachamim always say Emes, and brings out several chazals that everybody says Emes. And then he goes into a very interesting conversation, which is one of the fundamental principles of our emunah, is that our forefathers didn't lie to us. In other words, that there's a Masorah going back to Sinai. And as opposed to other nations which do not have that type of reliability, and therefore it's very important for us to understand if and when you're allowed to lie, because if you're allowed, there's a blanket ahead there, carte blanche, to lie, so then it undermines our entire emunah, because then who says they didn't like us? Now, this is not such a question to me, but obviously there is a possibility of saying, yeah, it's a mass lie, as likely as it must be. So therefore, lying is a very, very dangerous thing, not just to our midos, but even to our emunah, because it can damage our emunah in the Masorah which we have to earlier generations, ultimately back to our Sinai. So that's why he's going to continue on to say that he's going to go on to explain this in great depth, which I'm sure he's going to do, and that I'll gloss over the rest of the Akdama here. I'm going to start the actual sefer. Okay, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph. Now, Kasu B'Torah Midvar Sheker Tirchak. says from falsehood you should distance yourself. When we infer, when we medayik this properly, in that which it says tirchak, distance yourself, and not tishmor, save yourself from lying or preserve yourself from lying. It comes to tell us that a person should distance himself very, very much from lying, not just to preserve itself from lying, more, which is different than anything which is said elsewhere in the Torah. In other words, elsewhere Torah says preserve yourself from lying. It doesn't, and here, according to this interpretation, which is taken from the sefer Achinuch and others, tirchak means even further. Don't just watch yourself not lying, but distance yourself from lying. It's an interesting shot. I always learned the opposite. I always learned that Midvar Sheker tirchak, since it says that, it doesn't say lo sishaker. It means that you should distance yourself from lying, but it's not an outright prohibition. We explained to somebody the other day, it's like smoking cigarettes, right? Smoking cigarettes is not outright prohibited, but it's something one should distance oneself from as much as possible because of the various different issues which are involved in it. So the way I understand it is that there is no explicit issur in the Torah in not to speak falsehood. But he goes with these opinions and says in Sif Beis that somebody speaks sheker, transgresses. What does he mean? Somebody wrote, having connection issues, hearing every other word. This being recorded, right? Yes, this is being recorded. Okay, so so somebody who speaks sheker, according to this, transgresses a mitzvah saseh. And even if it is just a mixture of sheker in truth, and even if it's only a little bit of sheker, he still transgresses the prohibition of midvar sheker tirchak. So this is he brings down here in the sources that there is, everybody holds that it's a doraisa to transgress midvar sheker tirchak. Again, I'm not sure if that's true, but here he brings down also that some people infer from the Rambam that midvar sheker tirchak doesn't only if it applies as a doraisa, it only applies in Beis Din. In other words, in Beis Din, one is never allowed to lie. That's the place where one always has to tell the truth, because obviously it undermines the function of the Beis Din. Then he brings down, but obviously we don't go with that assumption. But then he brings down the chinuch, and then he says, basically the thing the chinuch says like me. Let's see. Even though he says sheker is very bad and very disgusting, the truth is very, very important. Nevertheless, he says that the issur specifically so he says this is specifically in Beis Din. He does say it's specifically in Beis Din, at the end he says that a person should distance himself from sheker in all scenarios, no matter what. So according to Chinuch, in fact, also it is in Beis Din. It's only in Beis Din. Elsewhere, it is not doraisa not to lie. At least it's just a highly disparate, inappropriate behavior, not an outright prohibition. And he brings down several other sources to this, and it seems that many sources hold that there is no issur of sheker outside Beis Din. Some people hold it's worse in Beis Din, but it's also outside of it's worse when it's in Beis Din. It's also outside, but it's worse in Beis Din. And then he brings down an interesting thing from the Yereim, Mitzvah Reish Lamed Hey. He also holds that midvar sheker tirchak only applies in Beis Din. But he adds, sheker she'eino bo lidei ra, if a lie has no negative ramifications. Lo yishira Torah alav, the Torah did not forbid it. The davar lo may be yono, because since midvar sheker tirchak is talking about where there are negative repercussions, whether they're based in or outside of based in. So therefore, you're outside based in, a sheker which has no negative ramifications is permitted, and that's why he says we have the idea in Maseches Ksubos that at a chasna, you're allowed to say about the kala. They still says kala no v'chasuda, she's a pleasant and pious kala, even if she's disgusting and wicked, right? Because there's no loss involved. Now, maybe we could come up with a loss, but as far as the Urim is concerned, there's no loss. So so whenever he says, okay, so what about Beis Shammai? Beis Shammai says you have to tell the law, you have to tell the truth. If she's ugly, you have to say she's ugly. So the truth is you don't have to say anything, but he says Beis Shammai holds that you say Kal Ono V'Chasuda, it's Gnevas Das. You are deceiving the chassan, because the chassan is going to think, I don't know why he didn't realize. I don't know why he didn't realize this till now. And if we tell him this now, why it doesn't any good? But it is the Gnevas Das to tell to say to the chassan, your kala is ugly, right? I once heard an urban myth about a guy who went into his brother, and just before his brothers get back married, and said, the girl you're marrying is very ugly. He said it in a more crass way, and the husband just punched him in the face. So, which is, I think, the only reaction we could expect. So I know what Beis Shammai is. If that was what Beis Shammai held, then I don't know what they were thinking to accomplish. So the bottom line is that even then, even if they're allowed to lie, again, there's an Indian. It's appropriate to stay away from lying. Okay, so he says, he goes on to say in Sif Gimel, not only, and this is a very big chiddush, not only is it also to speak to sheker, but you're not even allowed to listen to a sheker. And even if it's a suffix, it's a doubtful sheker, you're not allowed to listen. And he differentiates here. There is a suffix of sheker, and there well, all right. Let me we'll get to in a second. So first he says, where is this prohibition of listening to sheker come from? So he says that the Chinuch says we're not supposed to incline our ears towards somebody who is involved in telling falsehood. It's disgusting to hear it in and of itself. So I don't think it's an Issa D'Oraisa. He's not sure it's an Issa D'Oraisa to listen to sheker, but it is important, evidently, not just to not lie, but also not to listen to lies and try to distance oneself from lies. I think we can derive it from the fact that it says there are 4 kitos, 4 groups, which are not Mekabel Pnei Shechina. And probably a group includes people who are telling the lies and people listening to the lies. So therefore, it would seem that from there we have a source that a person is not allowed to listen to a lie. I'm not sure if it's not Issa D'Oraisa, why a suffix would be Asur, because you only say suffix is Asur, a questionable case also when it's a D'Oraisa, but I don't know if there's any differentiation in midos between D'Oraisa and D'Rabbanan. In other words, in being a good person, it doesn't. I don't think it matters if it's D'Oraisa or D'Rabbanan. In being doing an mitzvah or an aveira, we differentiate between D'Oraisa and D'Rabbanan. But in being a Baal Musar, having the right personality and doing the right thing ethically and morally, I don't think that there's a difference. One has to be machmir no matter what, because in order to be an ethical, moral person, one has to accomplish that by any means possible. So therefore, to me, it stands to reason that it doesn't matter if the Rabban D'Oraisa, no matter what, a person should avoid anything which makes a person a bad person. In Dali, he says, even things which can be interpreted in two ways. If he's trying to trick other people, and they are, it's clear to people who understand what he's doing that he's lying, it's usher. Okay? Except, he says, he in brackets, in the places where you're allowed to change. You're allowed to lie because of shalom, etc., as we're going to see. Then in those places, it's best to do it in a manner which diminishes the lie. And that's something which we learn from Yaakov Avinu, the way when he said, Ani Esav b'chorecha. I am Esav, your son, right? And it was a lie, but there was a way in which theoretically somebody could have been translated and interpreted it as Ani, Esav b'chorecha. I, me, and Esav is your firstborn. So in that case, it would say that even though it's a lie, and you got to lie because of the ultimate good, the better the betterment of the world, nevertheless, you should try and diminish the lie as much as possible. But a lie is a lie is a lie. It's still a lie. It's a diminished and smaller lie, which doesn't make it much better when it stands on its own, but makes it better when it's mutter to lie anyway. Also, if you tell the truth, but leave out some details, which then this will lead your statements to be distorted and taken in a distorted way, that's also going to be a form of sheker. By the way, they say that sheker, any sheker which has a little bit of dvar emes in it, is not going to be sustainable. Sheker has to have a little bit of truth in it, otherwise it's going to just be ridiculous. So whatever's going to be sheker, it has to have a little bit of truth, and that's alluded to in the fact that in the word sheker, the letters kuf reish are in order, right? Then you have the shin, which came at the beginning of the word, but then you have kuf reish, which should be at the end. But you have kuf reish in order to show that even sheker has a little bit of truth to it. Well, conversely, if you're saying emes and there's a little bit of sheker to it, that's also sheker. By the way, the letter emes is understood to be antithetical to sheker on several levels. One of them is because it goes in order. Aleph, the mem, the tov, right? It encompasses all the letters of the alphabet in that aleph, mem, tov, as opposed to sheker, which is distorted. Okay, even if a person does not speak at all, but rather from his deeds, from things he does, it's a lie emerges. It's usher. According to this, it's certainly also to lie in writing. And you're also not allowed to cause a person a mistake by remaining silent. So it's not just the verbalization of a lie, but any manifestation of falsehood, which all falls under the rubric of that which is midvar sheker tirchak. He says, therefore, sometimes people say facts as they happen, but out of context, and then they transgress with this, the isser of sheker. This is all these things going to elaborate on later in the book. But like people quote Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and they quote him as saying XYZ, but they take him out of the context because you don't know what was said. In the UVW before the XYZ, or the ABC after the XYZ, and that would take something out of context. So then it's also sheker. In other words, like for example, when they had Chaim Kanievsky saying that you don't have to close yeshivas because of the coronavirus, it turns out what they told him before, and it's not a big deal. It's like a cold. It's like a flu. So of course it's going to say that you don't have to go close the yeshivas. But they took that context out, or rather they left out that context. So therefore, that becomes a sheker in and of itself, even though what you're showing is precisely true. The distortion, which is crazy, living out is in of itself a problem. Okay, one more halacha before I think they're going to cut me off. They should have cut me off already, actually. So maybe we'll leave this for next time. So up to Sif Ches in the paragraph of Emes Knei. Does everybody want to go continue with this?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right, so next week, more on lying. How to do it. All you want to know about lying, but we're afraid to ask. Okay. Have a good evening, Rabbi Isai.
All right, thank you, Rabbi.